Come, 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 come. Yes. Rajnish, Rajnish, first row. Hi Soumya, how are you? Nice to see you here. Come. Hi. Hi.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. Come.
Sorry to hear about your health.
Yeah.
You were here just today.
Come. Hi Aaron, come. Huh. Yeah. Yeah, sit, sit. The front row is meant for you, Radhika. Hi Ranga. Hi.
Hope this works. Yeah. Thanks everybody for coming. A few more will come later. Uh, we are here today just to celebrate. We had a great friend, a great colleague, an amazing person in Ramki, and today we're just trying to remember and have a fond recollection and celebrate him. We have a short video because a lot of people sent in a lot of content to us. We have a short video. We'll just share that before and then we'll start off. Okay. So
We called him Rama.
Rama used the word legend a few times, and in a lot of situations, and you have to be careful. You have to kind of understand where and how he used it. In my opinion, he is the OG legend. Um, I have been adding Rama, a touch of Rama to my boring and not so boring experiences, and I still smile inside when I hear people go off on the deep end without stopping to see whether it was even worth discussing it. Um, his one-liners or one-worders, like he said, "Hey, Tambi, WhatsApp," or just dog, and that just meant a lot. Meant a lot. Um, and all I can say is I had a touch of Rama when you can.
We, his classmates from Vidyam Chennai, call him Rama and not Ramki.
We grew up together, we were really close. I'm really happy to have grown up with him, to have to be he is my best friend, and I have to say that I really miss him.
As a kid, Rama was super funny. He always had one-liners that would get us all cracking up. He was also an amazing artist and a caricaturist. So, thinking about Rama's caricatures, this one evening we were all invited to a Boy Scout camp, although we were not part of Boy Scouts. We were generally messing around and being loud and all that. And then to top it, Rama started to caricature our high school teachers and narrated epithets for every caricature. We just couldn't stop laughing.
And the line leader of sorts. He was definitely one of the leading lights in as far as nature club goes, and actually cultivated a vast group of friends outside the school while we still stayed in our bubble. He enjoyed cricket and was a skilled wicket-keeper batsman. He totally loved basketball and compensated for any shortcomings with amazing dribbling skills. And finally, he was a naturally gifted artist, and I still have many of his sketches of our teachers and stuff.
My first wildlife conservation camp was with Rama, Arvind, Papi, Ashok, we call him Ashok, Kumar, me. And I believe that was also Rama's first visit out of town to the jungle.
He was able to point out all the trees in Chennai where we were, and I was like, wow. I was impressed that somebody was able to have that deep knowledge about plants and animals and everything else.
He was the first photographer to photo document more than 1,000 species in the country, and he was generation ahead of rest of the photographers.
My first experience with Ramki, the wildlife photographer. We were on a safari trip to Ranthambore and Tiger Paradise, and Ramki kept asking for this bird, the painted sand grouse. And one of our guides said we're going to find it at the end of the safari outside the park. And here we are at the end of a safari next to a dirty pond with some birds in it and waiting for this bird. And I was wondering, what's the big deal? And this bird appears and suddenly Ramki gets off the jeep with this huge camera, crawls on all fours and then on his stomach to get pictures of this bird. He comes back and I said, what are you doing? And he said, high level da. And I was like, okay, whatever. A few years later, in my birding avatar, newly minted birding avatar, thanks to you know who, I'm at a beach shooting birds, and guess what I had to do to get a picture? I had to go down, all fours, belly up, with my camera taking pictures, and I was reflecting on the delicious irony of it all.
When I first met Ramki, he was a 25-year-old boy, young man, starting an ad tech company at a time when entrepreneurship was not even widely talked about concept. His enthusiasm, clarity of thought stood out to me, and I was very impressed. And over the last 25 years, I had the privilege of watching Ramki grow and succeed. And there are few qualities that truly stood out to me. He had a self-deprecating sense of humor, was always willing to be understated, not just thinking about himself. Even during the dot-com bust, he remained positive and persistent, eventually co-founding Marketex after Intercept with Shankar and Vinay, where I had the pleasure of working with him. Ramki was a true leader, always leading by example and building a successful company based on frugality, simplicity, and hard work. He was always humble, sharing the credit with his team, never seeking the limelight.
And the thing that stood out for him as a boss is the amount of backing that he would really give his employees. Being employee first ahead of clients is a very common cliche that most people say about when working in service companies, etc. Saying employees are our biggest asset, keep your employees happy and your customers will be happy.
Ramki helped create a workplace. I think that was very fair to employees, and it had some very sensible policies which in hindsight they were very revolutionary, like simple focus on client delight and treating employees as adults and respecting their opinions. It did not go into complex policies and just focused on what was really important. But he really created a model of a kind of workplace that it's worth emulating, and I think later many of us really tried to recreate that.
What was Ramki's first designation as an entrepreneur? It was a client understanding, because we want to show that we really understood the client.
We partied in Kalkaji with the doors. He was mad about that gym. He was mad about the other gym also for that.
I was in Singapore in a train station, and he called me and we were chatting for 15, 20 minutes. And what was truly special was that that was the day he actually sold his startup. It was a successful exit. It was a life-changing thing. It was a very meaningful achievement that he didn't think it was a big deal. He's so humble and understated. That is what I truly love about Ramki, and I guess many others too.
When Ramki and Kimi planned to meet, Kimi would always come back with so many new ideas, thoughts, and some subjects which I never thought I could get Kimi interested in, like climate change. And I used to really be envious of Ramki that how is it that he is able to make Kimi interested in even listening or wanting to do something in that area. So I guess he had that passion in him which would make people really listen and do something about the causes he was involved in.
That it's always possible to fight conservation battles with a smile on your face. You made a difference to me. You made a real difference to me, Ramki.
And if I were to summarize you in one word, that would be an emotion. Ramki, you are an emotion. For all of us, all those who touched you or whose lives you touched, came across, you are an emotion. Amazing. Right now, wherever you are, I hope you're perched on top of a machan in a thick jungle with your bazooka lens, hopefully shooting some birds.
Ramki was so full of life. I remember Bruce Lee was one of his favorites, and both of them achieved so much so young, but both went away too early, too soon. One of Bruce Lee's quotes was, one day your heart will stop beating and none of your fears will matter. What will matter is how you lived. Ramki surely lived a full life, not just that, but by impacting so many people in so many ways.
We met him as a schoolboy who evolved into a man and later on into something much, much more. While we were just basking in its warmth, suddenly the sun was ordained to set much ahead, even though it was not yet its winter. But Kid Bro Rama, you have left so much of yourself within us, that the journey will continue. And no goodbyes from us. Thanks.
What I will remain most grateful for is he once asked Shashank and me, what do we want as a wedding gift? And I said, give us free access to your land, and that's all I'll ever need. And he stuck to his word. We've always had access to his Valparai plantation whenever we wanted. This is the most amazingly beautiful property of coffee in the Valparai, and it's right next to the Humaramovie Tiger Reserve. And over the years, we've visited there many times and documented everything from your charismatic mega mammals like tigers to all sorts of endemic amphibians and reptiles. And thanks to Ramki's conservation efforts, even in this front, and few people know of his restoration of coffee in the Anomalies. And I got to do all of my PhD fieldwork in that area, and I'm very grateful to him for it.
His passion came out in almost everything that he did, whether it was just narrating an incident which happened a few years back, or a new idea that he had, or just a sales pitch. And I am quite convinced a lot of things that he managed to achieve were essentially and truly because of his passion.
I was just blown away where he had this larger purpose, and throughout his the entire time I knew him, and then as he proved afterwards, he was driving towards that purpose.
Ramki came up with this with this amazing campaign to stop Amur falcon hunting, and well, within a year's time, it saved lives of lakhs of Amur falcons across Northeast India.
We did a lot of things together, and we didn't always agree, but he was often my North Star in making decisions both on the personal and work fronts. And I know that will continue, and I'll always ask myself, what would Ramki have done in this situation?
So you think you can tell everything
So that was a snippet of Ramki. The way we plan to celebrate this evening is run through Ramki's life chronologically, and he was a person of such varied talents that each of us who saw a piece of his life had something unique to say about him. And that's what we are going to share, and we hopefully are all enriched knowing Ramki entire life. So we're going to first start with Ramki's brother, Kumar, to say a few words. You want to say it last? Okay. So then, sorry. Yeah, so we'll go to Achu, who was his school friend. Good to see a lot of familiar faces. GKR, come here, man. Vinay. So we'll first have Achu speak, and I don't know, Gubi, you may want to say a few words after that, or maybe why don't you start while we... Easy. Yeah. Anyway, so while let Gubi take the stage.
Hi. I'm Arvind, and I was Ramki's neighbor from childhood. We grew up together. We were opposite houses, and our journey goes a long way. And this whole wildlife, everything, school days, everything, all my memories of school days are with him only. So uh, I'm called Gubi by all these people, and actually the funny part is I'm actually called Kaka. So the thing is, Ramki is a very studious, very in those days he was very quiet, but he used to do a lot of these cartoons, and he was a very studious guy, and I was just the opposite. So I tried once. He had this collection of stamps, I still remember, and then I went and picked up a few from him because they had fallen down, and then I went to trade it back with him, thinking I was really smart, and that's when I got the name Kaka from there. No, so and it was sad that I couldn't even be that. So uh, he used to encourage. He used to be a problem solver. He used to, even if I had to, if I'm a cinematographer by profession, and when I had things, he used to encourage me, and any issues we could talk about. And like people have mentioned, the word legend started with us, and we used to. I'll choose you. So we used to use this word legend because it started with SPB at one time when he used to sing those extra lines when there's no words. He used to just hum those lines, "Tharapapa" and all that. And then Ramki used to say that is bonus. Those are called bonus. Those are not the money he's paid for. That's extra money that he's. Big Ilayaraja fan. We used to have loads of fun. And I used to wonder why we used to go to the Gindi Park every Saturday, Sunday. We used to live there literally and cycle all the way. And I used to take him doubles. And I was wondering why he asked me to do that, because it was a Hercules cycle that he had, and obviously he couldn't reach the pedal. and and then it was really, it was really that. And then we used to make fun of that. And then it, from doubles, it was triples. And then the cycling days were so much. And we had great fun. There were a lot of cricket, jumping terrace, sleeping on the terrace. And to recollect, actually, he actually went on from Vidya Mandir to do physics in New College, which was very different at that point of time. And I'm wondering why not any of these engineering or science or wherever he's supposed to do. And then we used to tell people that we were sleeping in the terrace. I'm sure Kumar was going to think otherwise now. But we used to go to New College and have our full night out there and then come back. And so it went on till a point where obviously he started this company, and then I also, my profession took and a lot of work started coming by. So then we used to keep talking every month, twice, thrice, and things like that. Yeah, but it's I can just see the number of people who just come to talk about him or to just to be there for him, even now. And I think this says a lot about who he is, who he was, and I don't think I can ever get over this. You know, every now and then I keep thinking every day, and well, that's how it is. And I'm sure he's still there, knowing there he's there somewhere, and I still keep talking to him, and then whenever I can. So that's that. Great memories. I'll always cherish that, and I think that's what life is all about. So thank you all.
Technologically, ah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so that was his school days.
They need to unmute. I mean, will be muted.
I don't know.
So what we are going to do is we, after his school days, he moved on to do his MBA in school days and New College. He moved on to do his MBA from SP Jain, and I know there are some of his friends and colleagues from SP Jain. I met Professor Nattu, who's based in Singapore, where I've just moved myself, and I spoke to him briefly, and he told me that one of the he was the guy who selected Ramki into SP Jain, and he told me that he had never seen someone with so many pieces of talent as Ramki had. And so Ramki would talk about wildlife, his I think he had done some field trip for some Canadian institute to measure I think to do some pug marks of tigers and so forth. So, and that impressed him so much that he made a recommendation that, Ramki should be selected, and told me that Ramki was ever grateful to him for bringing him into SP Jain and in a way changing his life and helping him achieve whatever he did subsequently professionally. So on that note, I'll just invite, maybe I'll just ask a few people to speak about his SP Jain days if somebody wants to volunteer.
Yeah, no, I'll speak from here. I'm Srivats. I was his roommate too, a batchmate and roommate. I know Ramki since 93, and you're talking about Professor Natarajan. I was actually in Chennai. But that's where I first met him. It was the interview process for SPJ, and I met him outside, and he went ahead of me, and then he came out, and then he said he had to rush and get his cartoons. You know, when Professor Natu wanted to see a portfolio of his cartoons, and he had to rush back, and I was just thinking, I mean, he looks like a cartoon, and so, I mean, it was funny actually. It was a business school interview, and then he had to rush and go get his cartoons to prove to Natu that, Professor Natarajan, that he had the talent, and I was just fascinated and intrigued by it. But anyway, subsequently, I didn't know he was going to be my roommate, and then, on the first day I found out that he was my roommate as well. And, for all that 1 year, the first roommate, I never met him because he was so popular. He was always outside the room, and because he was so well loved and well liked by everyone in the batch. But just still he, cared for everyone and cared for me. It was once the first year, I just want to remember one incident, the fun side of him. It was a Holi festival, and I've never seen a Holi festival being a Madrasi. And I think they were serving bong, so I've also not heard of it before. And then I started to drink, and then Machan, this is not payasam, okay? I still remember that particular incident, but I kept drinking, and then I had this 3 days of hallucination and all that. And he took care of me, but the one funny thing was that every time I wake up a little bit, he would just come and just laugh loud, and he would just roll on the ground and laugh. What an idiot you are, like, But anyway, so, he brought me food, and, those 3 days he took care of me. And those are the 3 days I really saw him in the room, actually, for the 1 year. So because of that, I very vividly remember those 3 days. Anyway, I would always love him, and we were in different countries. So I guess that, it drifted apart a little bit, and I wish I can roll back and would have spent more time in the later part of his life. But anyway, so special, and I would always love him. Thank you.
Do you want to go, Ranga, or can I? I guess there's the three of us here from his SP Jain days. Yeah, again, I think the connection with Ramki was always folks from Chennai. So the fun was at the party, he played Kuthu. He needed somebody to dance Kuthu with him, and I was there, and I loved every moment of that. And as I said with Ramki, it's memories over time, and I think they change into moments of remembrance. And we kept in touch, of course, of the last 25, 30 odd years, we've kept in touch. There was a time, I think, and I speak for my husband who's here, Anand and I, we became friends, of course, with the family. We were talking about a very tricky situation with Ramki, and as if a problem was like something big and we were trying to deal with it. Ramki just gives us a glance and says, trivialize it. Bloody shit, trivialize it. And we said, what are you saying? And you realize that something as simple as that, with such profound meaning, could only come from Ramki. And it's continued. I think those are moments, there are many such more. And even till today, I remember even a couple of months ago when we were talking about a situation, Anand and I look at each other and say, let's do a Ramki. Let's just trivialize the issue. And I think in these moments, Ramki lives with us. As I say, memories might fade, but some of this is forever. So we just thank you, Ramki, for this and much more.
Hey, Tuhin, are you there? Do you want to say something? You're on unmute. You have to unmute.
No, I'm not. I'm not muted.
We can hear you. Yeah, we can hear him.
Yeah, I'm not muted.
Yeah, speak.
Yeah, see myself on the screen somewhere on Pallavi's. Yeah, so like she once was saying, what he didn't say, that was her roommate. And one of the things is, I saw these two lads, and I was like, oh, well, I got Bihari as roommates, not knowing their fans. And I think the first interaction with Ramki was actually quite funny. He got in there, and we both smoked, both baking that day. And for the first year, we barter cigarettes. We keep count over it. No, you owe me two, you owe me one. I can't just forget this for whatever reason. But that said, over the years, we remained very, very close. And no matter which part of the world I was in, we'd come and see me. And we'd spend time together. We had so many vacations, time spent with family, just the two of us on a whiskey tour in Scotland in 2012. The number of things that we've done. In fact, for that trip, over to the next one, I think he came again and met me in Ireland in 2016. I said, Ramki, let's catch up, let's meet. And one day he calls and he says, I'm coming for a Floyd concert. And by the way, because it's just very close to where you are, I'll come and see you. And we made a very quick trip of that. He came to he came to London for the Floyd concert, flew down to Dublin, and he said, what are we doing? I said, just relax for 2 days. No. And he made me take him to another distillery. It was just a lot of single malt that I got from him. Now, every time I look at the bottle, I just put it away. I just miss him terribly. The closeness that he brought, the friendship that he brought, the perspective that he brought, when I was saying, about trivializing, he just brought a different perspective to things. And he made it so much easier to live life. I just celebrate him. There's a lot of happiness with the way he lived his life. And rather than feel sad, and I've actually looked at his photographs and cried a number of times. It's just, I feel happy that he embraced me in a way that I've never known. Now, Ranga's there in the call, Kala's there in the call, Srivat's there in the call. Extremely close friend. But Ramki and I don't know, there was something special. I always wondered what he saw in me. But it was just there. There was a bond, there was a clicking that happened between two of us. And right through to the end, we were close. No matter where I was, where he is, we always reached out. And the number of things that I do today, I can't get my head around that. I learned this from him, or I learned some words from him. Just a lot of memories. And I did say somewhere that I've seen his photographs. It just comes up on my screen. His photographs over the years, us as thin, skinny guys to, 29 years later. And I have tears that bond the emotion. But as Srivatsa was saying, celebrated, he was a funny guy at the end of the day. He had a wry sense of humor to make you laugh. And that's what I'd like to take away. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Tuhin. And this is where, at this point, he joined PNG, and which is where I met him first. I met him actually when I was going to take my medical test, and he was coming down with a bunch of friends. Sorry? Yeah. Please.
Even for the PNG interview, it was all about his, sketches, cartoons and birds, and I don't think there was anything about management or marketing or anything. It was completely based on his bird watching and sketches.
Yeah, in fact, he told me that Nattu told me, Professor Nattu told me that Ramki would kind of take his advice on how to prepare for the interview, and I think he was very thrilled that he got into PNG. We have of course, and after that, I've been with him ever since, whatever. So I have just infinite memories of him. Very humorous, of course, and some jokes keep playing in my mind again and again. There's one thing that does the round in PNG amongst us is that we used to go for a drink. Not we, a bunch of us used to go for a drink evening, and used to pay by credit card. And this was at Totlani's. I think it was called Totlani's. Now now the bill used to be cut in the name of Totlani Investments. So he used to say, Machi, my dad will be very fond of me, man. I'm investing at such a young age. He doesn't know what I'm really doing. So, there were infinite of such incidents. And in fact, a bunch of us from PNG are here during his days at PNG. And I would like to so what we did was we at PNG, we have a batch of 95. And we all did a trip to Thailand together. And that's when we had a ball. So what we did was a bunch of us got together and we have prepared a book, summarizing photographs and all our fond memories. And I'll ask Deepak, who's one of our batchmates, to kind of launch this. It's called Celebrating Ramki. It has a bunch of photographs. I think Rajesh has made it really special. Yeah. Yeah, Aram. This one you can be ruthless. Yeah. We can be ruthless. Yeah, this is the book. You can just I think he has to show it. Yes. Just open, can just open the pages, a few pages, and yeah, we made 50 copies for a bunch of us, and we're going to have runs of it. So yeah, it has all of us, each one of our batchmates have written some anecdotes about him, some stories about him, and we've collected the photographs that we have and some of his own pictures and created this. Deepak, you want to say a few words? Yes, sorry.
Yeah. First of all, major effort in this is Kimi's. we all have contributed, but he's been the driving force. So maybe we'll read the. Ramki Srinivasan, 3rd April 72, 17 December 22. It's okay. So I'll just read the forward. This is the forward, right? Yeah. Ramki joined PNG in 95, fresh out of B school. Like the rest of us, the batch of 95. Many of us lived together in neighboring flats called chamris, in bunches of 2s and 3s. The rest hung out there on weekends. We worked together, partied together. It was an extension of college life for many, many years. Ramki touched us all with his humor, joie de vivre, and above all, love for wildlife. The pages that follow captures fond memories of our time with Ramki. We put together whatever pictures we clicked in those mobile-free film roll days. Some are blurred, some grainy, and some out of context. But we know what they mean and the joy they evoke. We hope to capture and share some of that spirit in the pages that follow. While Ramki is not physically around us, the fun that he brought about and the ideals he cherished will live forever. Yeah.
Yeah, Swarna.
Yeah, so I think there are some themes about Ramki. So I met him, I'm Deepak Gulati and I'm called Gullu. So Ramki and Gullu was a combination. So he joined PNG, I joined PNG at the same time. And there were 30, 40 of us who had joined, and we joined in this marketing brand function. And each one goes on to these big brands. But Ramki and I came to a brandless function which was being set up called rural marketing. We were a bit kind of not so happy about this. Why us kind of thing. But somehow it was just two of us. Other teams were very big and everything. So not easy to get over that. So we had our first kind of party, the AGM of the company, so free flowing liquor and all that stuff. And I think that's where it was like within first month. And first of all, we discovered that both of us love drinking. So we had a lot of it. The next day, somehow, everybody is kind of calling us, hey, 33 1/3. Wondering what it is. And then how it went was that after we got drunk and we did a lot of things, some good, some bad. But since we were a small team, there were two of us and there was one more, which was our boss. So we rechristened us as 33 1/3, and that's the rural department. So after that, we were not called Ramki Rural or Gullu Rural. It was Ramki 33 1/3, Deepak Gullu 33 1/3. So this was first time, I think, I must have been done by him only, because I wouldn't be able to do such things. So he had this knack of finding these, one words, one liners, etc. So a couple of them in my first year, I still remember. So in PNG, we used to have this process called WNDP, yeah? Work and Development Plan. So, I mean, everyone knows by heart. Pretty serious process. I mean, end of the year, it's the review process, your appraisal, and it's a company where it's growth from within, so you don't hire from outside. So it's a pretty serious stuff. So 1 year was getting over, and this was that time of the year, and we were supposed to have our WNDP discussion with our boss on that day. And I'm sitting kind of tense and serious, and Ramki comes. Hey, niche jaake vada pav kar. I mean, vada pav, what do you mean? I mean, I have a discussion with Vijay, I'm waiting for that. No, Vijay tere ko vada pav pe bula raha hai. And Vijay was our boss, and he also used to smoke, and he used to have pan after lunch. There was a pan wala downstairs in PNG office. So, okay, I said, fine, he's calling, I'll go. And I went there, and then I said, where is vada pav? And he said, what do you mean vada pav? And actually it was supposed to be a WNDP discussion, work and development plan. And Ramki just had that at that spot. And I think next few years we all had our discussions at that panwala. But Ramki coined it as vada pav. So nobody calls it WNDP anymore. It's the vada pav, which we're going to have. Yeah, so these are some of those nice kind of memories. Again, he, as we know, he was very carefree. And since just two of us were there, we kind of got a little close. And first year, we stood for each other. So one incident I remember that really helped me was, I had a fear or a phobia of presentations. I did not want to go and make a presentation. And there was supposed to be one important presentation meeting to the national sales head. It was on a Friday. And a couple of days before that, I had to come to Bangalore for Bangalore for something, which was my campus. So I was meeting some friends, and so I didn't want to go back on that Friday to make that presentation, and weekend was coming. So I called Ramki, and I told him I had an accident and my leg is, hey Gullu, तेरे को नहीं presentation करना तो बोल दे क्या. So obviously he understood, and he made that presentation, and he made that very well, and I didn't have to go, and it was good and successful, and we got what we wanted. So yeah, so these were great memories of our first year. I think that was the most memorable year, and Then he left and he became an entrepreneur. I have great respect for that. He went out of the country. Later on, we again kept in touch. He used to come to Singapore, stay with me whenever he had worked with P&G and everything. Recently got back in touch with him. Met him last year, May or something. I think that was. I didn't know last time I'm going to see him there. But good. At least I met him recently. So yeah. So as we all say, he's here. He'll be with us forever. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Billu. So after PNG, I mean, I think both Ramki and I used to have discussions that PNG is a great company, but we kind of feel shackled. And obviously, as you have understood by now, Ramki could not be kept under chain for long. So we decided to break out, and we started a company called Intercept, which was short for Internet Concepts. And that was, I mean, nobody thought of entrepreneurship those days, but we decided to just do it. So I remember Ramki had about 40,000-50,000 of PF money, and so did I. And then we hit it off. We had a guy called Badri Seshadri who was running Cricinfo at that time, and he just pushed us over the edge and said, "Come over," and we started it off. We created we did a lot of firsts. We were probably the first VC funded firm in India, and after that, I think at that time we created India's largest ad server. The energy was quite electric, and that's when I think we a whole lot of people out here, I think, started their journey with Intercept.
Hi, sorry. It's strange. I see a lot of people from Marketix, but a lot of them have been with us from the time of Intercept. One of them is GKR. And when we got GKR into Marketix, into Intercept, he was what? How old were you?
Probably 20, 21.
I think you were 18. Yeah, he behaves the same, but GKR started as what? You were I don't know. I don't know what he did in Intercept.
That's precisely what Ramki used to do. He used to say, "Hey, what the whole udadra," which literally means "Chutyapan mat karo."
Yeah, so that was his first job. I don't think he would have got a job otherwise. But that was his first job. He joined us, and he transitioned with us to Marketix. And I guess he's doing extremely well. And I guess more than anything else, this would be one of the successes which Ramki would be really proud of. There were a lot of people who began with him and are continuing and thriving, which is one of the great things. We had another guy who joined us in Intercept. That was Vijay Jumani, who was the smartest dude we knew at that point of time. No, continues to be. And Vijay?
I guess I'm still getting to know a lot of things about Ramki today. I mean, I actually met him sometime around 2000 when Intercept, actually I had joined Shankar's company, and Shankar's company called Perigi, it kind of merged with Intercept. At Perigi also, although I had never met Ramki, we used to, very often hear his name, and it was always, it just sounded like, okay, we got to meet this guy someday. And the first time I met him was at the Intercept office in Mumbai, and I still remember that, having met him, I felt that there was something really special about him, and that I was going to enjoy working with him a whole lot. So then post that, I think we spent about 8 years working together on Marketix. So just Ramki and I together were the entire business development team at Marketix. And one thing you have to know about him is that he was, brilliant at delegating. I mean, while he would talk about like work-life balance, I often thought that, it's probably because he's able to delegate so well. But the thing about him was that you never felt you were working. He just made difficult things look very easy. uh, he rarely talked about work. I remember when Radhika and I, we got married and he was sending me off to the US. Firstly, I was like amazed that he just trusted me so much that he was just, sending me away, to on a 6-month trip, and that I would just be based there. There was no agenda, just had to go there and figure out how we could get more clients. So I remember when we got married, the first thing when he checked with me, how I was doing there, first of all, both of us went, Radhika and I both, and he just kept checking about the, sunset in San Francisco and what else we were doing. It was really never about work. So it was just amazing, working with him all through that period. I just feel very lucky that I got to see, how he built out this company right in front of me. And that's something I still run my own business. And I don't think, very often I just think of how he would handle situations that we are coming across. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Vijay. So, lots of people talked a lot about our HR policies, and very few people would know about this, but one of the prime examples of that is Rajneesh. No one I know of has actually done what he has done. In which year was it? 2004, 2005. He took a 1-year sabbatical.
No, so it's not 1 year. That's like a gross exaggeration. It was more like 3 months, Yeah. So, yeah, this would not have been possible in any other organization. And, Ramki was this fireball energy he had in himself. He was this guy who would, he was a natural leader. I know the term is used, very loosely for all sorts of people, but he would just enter a room and the focus, the center of gravity in the room would shift to him. He just drew in people with his sheer energy. He was, he was a great team builder. So you just, he would just draw you in. You could not be not affected by him, in the room or wherever he went, So, and the other thing about Ramki was that, I don't use this word lightly, but I think he was a great institution builder, You talk about culture and stuff, people, organizations talk about culture all the time. But I think, because he led by example and because he was so transparent, because you saw him and you got what you saw essentially. He was the same guy, irrespective of wherever you met him, whenever you met him, with whosoever you met him. So just, he was the heart of marketing. So just by the sheer aura that he had, there was this, this culture that he built. And, I'll tell you something. If he was around, he would scoff at it. He would say he had this self-deprecatory thing about, ye kya, I remember him saying this, we had this thing, this beautiful thing, which other organizations should also emulate. We had this 3-day weekend, So yeah, a lot of people used to plan their holidays and their things around the 3-day weekend. And he would say this, ye kya culture hai, if you talk to people about culture, it's just about the 3-day weekend. But no, it was, this whole thing of carrying people along and treating people irrespective of whether, you were working at whatever level to whatever level, he would treat people the same way. And you could go and discuss anything with him. So yeah, I'm just so thankful that I knew him and we shared so many moments together. Yeah.
Thanks. The 3-day weekend started with his sabbatical, but we have a lot of people here also from Architects. One of them is someone who went on to become an extremely successful entrepreneur. And Partha, how did you join Architects?
Yeah, I think I was in Delhi, and I remember I desperately wanted to get out of that city, and Ramki called. I was so glad to hear him say it's something in Bangalore. All I could hear was that he's starting something. It's an analytics. I didn't even know what analytics was. So he said it's in Bangalore, and I said I'm coming. He's like, don't you want to find out what it's about? I'm like, I'll figure it out. It's some math, and you have to do some presentation to clients. I said, okay, I can do that. So that's how I joined.
So there were some famous lines by Partha. So, so when they were discussing what he should get as a salary, so Partha, what did you say?
I can't remember. Do we have to go there?
So this was much before Godfather came. So he said, make me an offer I can't refuse. Yeah. So I hope, Partha, you had something like this when you were running your company.
No, but let's stick with Ramki.
Yeah. So a lot of people believe that Marketix was actually run by this lady. And I know she doesn't want to speak, but
I don't know what to say. Yeah, I did the front office job, but he gave me so much of respect, irrespective of what it was. He was so good at his heart, and I really, really miss him. And God bless Swarna and Shiva.
Rakesh?
Actually, many people would have attended interview. Normally, the people attending the interview will go before time. Okay, but Ramki waited for me close to some 3 hours. 10 o'clock was my interview time. I went there by 1. That also he took casually. He said that's okay. Originally, I was a consultant for Marketix. Later, he appointed me as an employee. Actually, for me, everything was Ramki. I worship him. Okay, for me, I wouldn't have reached this stage without Ramki. Whenever I talk to him, I will stand up and talk. That respect is only for Ramki. Ramki nahi, Ramki sir. I will not use his name. I will call him as sir. I can't talk beyond this. Thank you.
So I joined Marketix on the same day that Annie did. And I think I didn't encounter Ramki for a bit because he was traveling or something. But the first time I encountered Ramki was just suddenly this person talking on the phone in the loo really loudly. And I was wondering what's happening. And then someone told me that's the CEO and, he's on a sales call. And I think that was the only place you could take calls or whatever. So that used to happen quite a bit. So every once in a while we would hear Ramki in the loo talking to somebody. But yeah, I mean, what can I say? I'm so glad that, you guys started Marketix. And it was the way it was. It changed my life. So, yeah, thanks to Ramki.
On his talking, I have this incident. I had a friend of mine who had just come to Bangalore, and we were talking about what I do, and she said, there was this guy sitting behind me, and he kept blabbering the whole duration of the flight, and he kept, I don't know what nonsense he was talking. I think you guys do astrology, and it was essentially Ramki talking to someone who had just met on the flight, trying to sell them Marketix at that point of time. She thought we were doing astrology because he must have spoken about predictive analytics. So that's what, but that's what he was. He could sell anywhere and everywhere. Someone who is one of the most critical people here, Shankar, hasn't had a chance.
So, my first encounter with Ramki was in Procter & Gamble. I joined in 96. I was doing my summers in 95. That's when the 33 1/3 and 33 1/3 were there. And I didn't know this department called Rural. I spent 15 minutes with him. And he sold me so much on it. I actually thought of asking for when I joined the next year, join the Rural department. So that's how good of a salesperson he was. We were both part in PNG, part of the laundry team, and it was all 11 of us. 3 of us are here. It was called as the cricket team. Ramki made no bones of the fact that we were too many people, chasing too few things, being too busy all the time. One day, our bosses gave us Mission Impossible. This is 97. How can we turn profitable by 2000? That time there used to be this famous Hayward's beer brand, right? Hayward's 2000. So there is this thing, this guy drinks Hayward's 2000, he thinks he's a stud. Somebody opens a door and slams and says Hayward's 5000. So everybody looks at him and claps. So all of us engineering MBA types are crunching numbers, ye, wo. Ramki comes in. And those who know Ramki, you know his high-pitched laughter, right? So he has that high-pitched laughter and he says, Hayward's profit 2000? Profit 5,000, third. In that 4 words, we realized that we're not getting profitable for the next 3 millennia. So somebody said, choda yaar, jaake vada pav khate. But that was Ramki. You know, his laughter meant many things to many people. But for me and for others, it was a mirror he held out to us on not taking our ideas too seriously. Or our work too seriously. When he left PNG, therefore, in some ways, he was a kind of a role model for me. I remember meeting him, Kimi was not there at that time, meeting him in some function. And I was excited and I was talking to him as to what have we learned so far in being an entrepreneur. He instantly replied that somebody told him that if you are quitting a job to become an entrepreneur, don't think about a plan B if your venture fails. If you think about plan B, you will quit when the first hurdle comes. And you will go back to what you were comfortable with. So, you know, that advice he followed, and it's helped me quite a bit. And yeah, I will also pass it on to countless people. So act 2 of my life with Ramki was with Marketix. I don't know many of you know, he coined the term Marketix and I was not impressed with it, but whatever. We were having tea, lemon tea at a Cunningham shop, and on a napkin he literally drew the logo of Marketix, right? And what excited him most was the cartoon potential of that symbol. If you remember, that man like this, right? XYZ. There's so many things I could do. Imagine this guy drunk behaving, right? Imagine his hands going like this. So yeah, sounds good to me. At that time, we decided from our earlier failures that we decided certain things. No VC money, जो खुद करेंगे अपना पैसे पे करेंगे, right? And a lot of those decisions really borne out later. Now, shifting to Marketix, because that's a story in itself. Yeah. So as others said, he was the spirit of Marketix. In PNG, he was a square peg in a round hole. But in Marketix, he made sure that all shapes of pegs could fit in. Right? From you know, Rajneesh, Vijay, Preeta, everybody, right? It is, and as Rajneesh said, that he worked hard on the culture and making sure that Marketix was a kind of place where you could bring your passion to. And we, along the way, developed a bunch of our own aphorisms. The only unconditional thing is client delight. Everything else is negotiable, including whether you wear clothes to office or not. Right? My dog used to go to office. Once, anyway, so let me tell a few stories that illustrate some of this. And people are here, so I mean, I might offend some people, but it's okay. It's to celebrate Ramki, not to do anything else. So this is one night, 11:30. I get a call from Partha, right? If I'm getting a call at 11:30, it's never good news, right? So naturally, I pick it up, and Partha says, "My wife is pregnant again." I said, "Okay." So next morning we had a 7:30 call. So Partha still reconciling from it. So I said, "Okay, I'll take the PNG call." So I called up Ramki, saying, "Boss, there's a situation here." So on the other hand, Ramki laughed so hard. He laughed so hard, right? So till then I was serious, but when he laughed so hard, it's like, yeah, what do you do, right? But that was Ramki. Instead of being, upset or whatever, that's how he would look at things. Another incident, and again, Ganesh is here. So once he was angry with Ganesh, right? Ganesh was our first and last investor, right? He was angry with Ganesh on something. So he wrote an email bitching about Ganesh to Ganesh. So at 11:30 I got a call. No, not 11:30, 9, right? Saying, boss, I've done this. I said, you've done what? I was angry with Ganesh. I wanted to write to you, but I sent it to Ganesh. We are screwed. Said, come down to Little Italy, that office next to, right? So I said, Darupi. So he had 2 pegs, right? I was laughing. What else do you do? Naya duba to duba, but style mein dubaya, boss. So after 2 pegs and all, he also started laughing, right? So kya kar sakte hain? So the next day he went and he had the thing to meet Ganesh and explain the thing. And I think Ganesh also laughed it off and was very gracious to say, "Aisa hota hai, don't worry, I've also been an entrepreneur," right? That is because it was Ramki, right? When he made mistakes, he would be genuine about it. When you made mistakes, he would laugh it off. And so I remember, so other thing about Ramki, which many of you may not realize, is the way he behaves with kids, the way he behaves with old people, right? He treats them at their level. I remember he used to come when Soham was 2 years old. He would talk to him, right? And he would talk to him not like an adult talking to a kid, right? And that I noticed was a very amazing quality of him. He would talk to sales guys in that way. He would talk to the chai wala. In PNG, we used to have a Nagesh sandwich wala. And in Marketex also, we used to have that, what we used to call as the Marketex Management Development Center, which was that chai tapli, where you stand and have thing, right? Opposite Rahul Dravid's house, if you remember. That one. Why it was called Management Development Center? Because we had an open office. If we had a crisis or if you had to bitch about somebody, Ramki would say that we need to retreat to our Management Development Center. He said, Abhi, okay, got it, let's go. So 1 cup of tea and half an hour of something, and then life was back to normal. One thing about Ramki was he was always interested in being fair and doing the right thing. Not about following rules, but making sure that we are doing the right thing. So I'll give you one example. In PNG, in Marketex, as the deal with WNS was in its final stages and more or less done. That time we had issued around 20 ESOPs. We were maybe 250 people. We had issued ESOPs to 20 people. And we knew that a lot of money was being made, right? At that time, Ramki said, look, let's go back to our mission. The last line of our mission said, in doing so, we'll have fun and get rich. We have had fun, right? We are getting rich, but who's the we? And so over a 5-minute decision, we decided to increase the number of ESOPs from 20 to 80. Anybody who had joined more than 3 years ago, anybody we could, with any kind of justification to our board, we increased it, and Ganesh was part of the board, and they also graciously accepted, right? So that's again Ramki. But when the check came through, right, I had a broken leg. Some of you remember that incident, right? So I was lying in bed. He called and said, dude, have you checked your bank account? I said, not yet. He said, I've never seen so many zeros in my life, man. And that was, he just was genuinely surprised by the whole thing. So first stage was PNG, second stage was Marketex, and and third stage we moved on to doing what one would do if one had a lot of wealth and you could do, that is, change the world, right? Except he wanted to change the world, I had no clue what I would do. And in his case, the world was animals and nature. And he went ahead and did that. After some time, I also figured out something there. But it was there that I realized that he literally changed the world with Amur Falcon and the way nature and conservation thing is happening. And we used to talk a lot. How can technology be used there? What are some of the problems in the social sector? We used to compare notes. And over lots of single malts in his house, he actually introduced me to single malts. And one of his most precious gifts to me was, oh, chai ka tumbler hota hai na, glass wala, that you get in a railway station, colorful. He said, boss, try drinking single malt in this. Ultimate, right? In a sense, that also represented how he could straddle both worlds. The world of cutting chai, vada pav, the world of single malts, right? The world of Natu dance, and the world of jazz and Pink Floyd. And he could do it effortlessly. He didn't need to be somebody else. I think that is one thing that shone through all the three phases that I knew him, which is being authentic, being true to himself, and yet being that person who, when he enters the room lights up. The energy of the room changes. In all of this, that small round specks behind which shone the big eyes, and that dimpled smile, and that rasping laughter, which would mean that somebody either is in trouble or there's some deep life lesson that somebody needs to learn. I think that's all. A lot of that we will remember him by. One thing I deeply admired him was he was at ease with himself and who he was. He didn't need to pretend that he's with a bunch of corporates in PNG, so that's how he'll behave. He's an entrepreneur, so that's how he'll behave. He's doing a lot of good for the world, and that's how he'll behave. He was still the same. That is admirable. So in ending, a few weeks ago, we mourned his passing. Today we are here to celebrate his life. But I think the best compliment we can pay him is, and honor his legacy, is having a bit of Ramki in our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shankar. And I think this is the right time to ask Ganesh to say a few words. A culmination of marketics, and of course Ganesh is always humble, so he will not describe the role that he played. But
I wanted it all about myself. I wanted to speak about how I did that, but since Kimi has told I shouldn't speak about myself, I'll not speak about it. No, I think like I had mentioned, you must have seen in the video, I met him when he was 25 or so. When Intercept, he and Kimi had started Intercept, they had raised some money, and as it often happens, .com bust hit. The company was in deep trouble, but what I really liked at that time was the energy and spirit. Most of the people during the .com bust went back to safe jobs. I thought he would go back to a job, but the way he handled it with grace, at that young age, seeing success, raising money, and then going it all down the drain, and the struggles to fire employees, shut down the company, all of that can easily take a toll on most of us. The way he was able to handle this was admirable. And 99% of the people would have gone back to a safe corporate job. He didn't do that. The second innings, right, of starting Marketix, despite all of that went through, of course with Vinay and Shankar and later Kimi. My biggest disappointment with Ramki was when he said, I'm setting up a meeting at Leela with Kimi. Okay, right? So my visions of Kimi was Kimi Katkar, which is what in our... and true to Ramki's style, he did not say who was Kimi, okay, right? Because he wanted to get Kimi on board. Kimi was the co-founder in Intercept, wanted him to come back into Marketix, and he wanted my meeting to take place. So that is one memory that is there. Of course, Shankar talked about the email that he sent to me by mistake. I was actually on a flight at that time, so I didn't see the email. So when I opened my email box, first I saw a lot of apologies from him before I saw the actual email, because it's the order in which it comes. I saw the last. Then I looked at it. I read the email once, twice, and all that stuff. And I'm quite thick-skinned, and he was not the first person to bitch about me. So I said, I told him that also when he met me. I said, it's okay, yeah. I mean, what you have said, I've heard far worse things about myself, so it's okay. And he was very gracious. We let know. But what really stood out, okay, right? One was his humility and not taking himself seriously, giving and sharing the full credit, okay, right? Even today, very few people, okay, right? After, in recent times when they reached out to me and I reached out, they didn't know about the phenomenal success that the team here created with Marketix. It's almost unbelievable that you can start a company, you can bootstrap it with very little money and actually have a $65 million exit. Never ever talked about it. And all of us here and most of us here today, even if we get one small success, we'll put it in social media, we'll put it anywhere, we'll brag about it. But he doesn't talk about it. Even see his work, whether it's Conservation India, wildlife photography, and people don't know the kind of work he has done with Amul Falcon, the kind of work that he has done with Nagaland government, some of the photographs that he has done, but the first ones that he had done, that nobody could ever think about it, okay, right? That they don't know about it because he never put himself first. You don't see him promoting himself. That's two. And third, just, and Shankar talked about it a bit, the increase of ESOPs post a deal being done. I mean, that is rarely ever done because literally you are giving money from your pocket to somebody whom you don't have to give. And that was it. And there was one more incident of, we had done a small acquire of a company, I don't want to mention the names here, and something was due to the person. And he was generous enough to give lot more than that, exactly with that principle. I think many of it. For me, like with Shankar, we had had several sorry, we had had several single malts together. He used to love single malts, and his favorite peeve was in Bangalore you could not get original Talisker single malt. There is a lot of spurious single malt that is there, and he used to sip. He used to have only one sip, one drink at a time. I mean, all of us have one drink at a time, but only one drink a day. He was also occasional cigar. The first gift I got from him was a box of cigar when he went on duty free and gave it to me. We used to enjoy that. So lot of nice, lovely memories. Last one I'll share is when we sold Marketix. Okay, I said, what are you going to do? Okay, he said, I'm going to do full-time conservation, wildlife photography, and things of that sort. I said, you're too young to do this. That's not the age that you'll not enjoy. You have a lot more life. He says, no, my goal was, money was only a way for me to have the freedom to pursue what I want to do. And he had set himself a goal of doing it at 35 years old. We sold Marketix when he was 36. We are 1 year, he said, we are 1 year later, that's what I'm going to do. I said, I'm sure after 3 years you will get bored and come back to corporate. I'm very happy to see that he was able to do full-time pursuing what his passion is. Perhaps somewhere God knew about the shortness of his life. I think it will be great if all of us for 15 years are able to pursue full-time our passion and hobby which he had the privilege to be able to pursue. Okay. With that, let's say 3 cheers to Ramki. Wherever you are, be happy.
Thank you. Thank you, Ganesh. You know, we've talked so much about him being very strategic, him having a vision as he goes along, and that was his passion for conservation and wildlife. I'm just going to pass it on to Vikram.
Thanks, Vinay. So, you know, when we were drawing up the list of all the invitees for this event, so Vinay said you can invite about 25 to 30 people on the wildlife side, as he called it. Swarna and I started drawing up the list, and in about 10 minutes, I think we crossed 175. And we said we'll stop here because we're going to hurt a lot of people if we don't invite them. So we pulled back heavily. You know, whoever we did finally invite, it was mostly because of all the personal connections also that they had apart from just wildlife. So there's going to be a bigger event. And I think we've heard one common thread that I've seen right through is right from his childhood, from the first story that we heard, I think it's been wildlife right along, right? It's every part of his life, every facet of his life, I think it's been about wildlife. And like true wildlifers, all the senior folks in the back, I asked them if they could speak a few words now, and they've politely declined and said, we'll do it when the wildlife event happens, because we're going to have a lot more people. So I'm nice looking at them and seeing how does she get them to talk? But we are actually very glad that they were able to join us. Someone who's, and the other thing is, I think a lot of the things that you folks have said in the last dozen years, I think they resonate a lot with me personally, because I also tried to do a startup together. We obviously were part of the same single malt club, 100 things together, and almost everything that you folks are saying is almost, I can hear every name coming out of his mouth telling me about stories about all of you. So I think personally very emotional to hear all of those in first hand from all of you. While we'll have the senior speak at a later time, I think there's one person very special who worked with Ramki very closely to save the very famous Amur Falcons, which you all would have heard in the media and all of those things. I know where Bano is sitting, so I just wanted to get her to say a few words.
Okay. Gosh. Yeah, it's so wonderful to hear all the backstories of Ramki. I knew him as a friend. I knew him as somebody who became very close to my family, and of course as somebody on the field of conservation. And he truly was the architect and the soul of the Friends of the Amur Falcon campaign. And I say this about him because he was really a strategist. He was very strategic in his thinking and in delegation of work. And I often think how he endured me for 10 years of our conservation work, because I'm really slow at his speed of thinking, and he's so savvy with technology. But he was patient, and he really came down to my level. But he was generous to the hilt, and he was generous with his time, he was generous with his thoughts, he was generous with his connections, and he was always very quick to respond, and he was always there. But he was always there when you really needed him most, and he was always available. And when I look back on his life, and I say this with a lot of goodwill for Swarna and Shiva, that Ramki had grace in his life, and I thank God for that. And I know that that grace that was with him will continue with you in your lives and with all the people that he has so fondly touched. And definitely with me, we miss him terribly. And of course, every time the migration season of the Amur Falcons come, we know why it's possible, and we know it was because someone called Ramki walked amongst us. Thank you.
On behalf of all those millions of falcons which they managed to save, a big thank you to Banu and Ramki, of course. Another person very close to him, you asked him? Okay. Yeah, Ullas, if you would like to. So, always an honor for us to have Ullas with us. And you could, or you could speak here and we can. Yeah. You can sit here. For those of you who are not familiar, Ullas is the world's foremost tiger biologist, and as what Ramki did for Amur, probably Ullas has done a lot more for our tigers as well. So many champions among us.
Thank you. People have spoken eloquently about Ramki, Scotch, and all the good things in life. I will be very brief. You don't make deep friendships late in your life. You usually have those friendships early when you're youth. So I met Ramki pretty late, probably in my 60s or even mid-60s, when Shekhar, who I've known for longer, Shekhar Dattatri, brought me to him, and we took him to Boring Club, and he said, I want to do conservation. And every idea he threw up was stupid. And so we spent 2 hours telling him, this is not conservation. It's something fancy, it's not conservation. So what is conservation? We kind of drilled down to it. And people normally don't like being challenged because a lot of conservation is a combination of two things. You need heart, you need passion, but you also need reason, science, and logic as much as you do in analytics or something else. And the combination has to work. And the conservation world is overloaded with passionate people, very underrepresented by logic, reason, and science. So when I talked to Ramki, I made that connect that here's a person who thought logically, and if you attack his ideas and say they are dumb, he would very quickly change his ways. So this led to a few efforts, and most memorable them, of course, was these two guys, Ramki and Shekhar. They were communicators. Ramki was a techie with a logical mind, and some of us in the conservation groups, Wildlife Conservation Society, Center for Wildlife Studies, had deep knowledge of conservation, years of experience, and we were able to make it all work. Many of these campaigns worked. CI was a part of it. Other things worked. So in some sense, it's a business that never makes a profit in conservation. It's very different from the business we have been hearing for the last 1.5 hours. But the joy comes for actually seeing change that is not reflected in any balance sheet. Bano gave an example of the Amir falcons. There were other things. But one thing I found very amusing was when I talked to Ramki, he had the very first part of his life where he was with PNG and selling blades, and he said, I slept in the bus stand in Someshwara once because there was no place to sleep. So that connection to the land was with him and with me. So when he departed, it's not just me, a whole bunch of us who got to know him a little later in life missed him as much as you guys who have known him all your life. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ulas. So I'd like to ask Shekhar, co-founder of Conservation India, to say a few words. His slide came up. He wanted again to be a slide, but Swarna has managed to convince him to speak instead. Thanks.
Yeah, good evening. I just thought it was a very long evening, and Ramki would like all of us to do nothing better than go and have a single malt or a scotch, right? Anyway, my name is Shekhar Dattatri. I'm a wildlife and conservation filmmaker. And in the 22 years that I've been actively involved in conservation, many people have sought my advice on how they can be involved also, because so many people are concerned about nature but don't know how to begin. And I would like to say that of the dozens of people who came to see me, most never came back for a second conversation, because I think they came with the misapprehension that conservation is all about getting in a jeep and rushing off to radio collar tigers or count rhinos or something glamorous like that. And I disabused them of the notion that conservation is glamorous. It's often very, very tedious. And more conservation happens from behind the computer and in filing RTI petitions and PILs and doing stuff like that than actually going into nature. And Ramki is one of those rare exceptions who committed himself completely in the first conversation and carried it through till the very end. And that's why I made a slide which was very briefly shown, calling him the rarest of the rare, because talk is cheap. Anybody can talk the big talk. Very few people walk it. And conservation can be very thankless. And a lot of people here have talked about Ramki's humility. And Banu talked about his generosity also. I'll just give you a moment to read that. So we started this portal called Conservation India, and I would like all of you to go and look at it to see the amazing work that he produced along with a few of us. And Banu also talked about his work with the Amur falcons. There is a film called The Race to Save the Amur Falcon, which I produced. It's on YouTube. If you've seen it once, see it again. If you haven't seen it ever before, I think it'll be a revelation and will show you the kind of work that he did. And when I wanted to make the film, I wanted to make the film because it was an amazing success story, of which there are few and far between in conservation. And people need to be inspired by success stories because far too often we lament about problems. And I had to literally twist Banu and Ramki's arms very, very hard to get them to be featured in the film. Talk about humility. There's something called too much humility, and I felt like strangling them sometimes, honestly. But eventually I had my way, the film was made, and I think it will be an amazing testament to the work that Ramki did. And for me personally, working with him on Conservation India for 10 years or more, it's a one-of-a-kind site. There is none other like that anywhere in the world. It's been one of my longest and best collaborations. I'm very humbled and honored to have had that experience with him. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shekhar. So much closer home for those who call Bangalore their home. Ramki also tirelessly worked on what is known as the Hesarghatta grasslands, where he tried to save, what is probably one of our most underappreciated natural heritage centers in Bangalore. He worked very closely with Mahesh, and it will be great if Mahesh would say a few words because they've been fighting forever to get that place protected by the government.
So it's just about 30-40 kilometers northwest of this place, 5,000 acres of bit of grassland, scrublands and green area and a lake. I lived there and I was working to conserve the lake, and our neighbor, friend Ramkumar, who is here, he introduced me to Ramki, and ever since then we did a lot of work, and Ramki and Sheshadri wrote the proposal, which actually is online. If you search for Hesarghatta Conservation Reserve, you get the PDF. That's something that you can, it's completely authored by Ramki and Vikram and Sheshadri. So you could please download, and it's quite a piece of work. It's beautiful document. So, and we met countless principal chief conservators of forests, fought court battles together. Last couple of years, actually meeting only on Zoom, and the struggle is still on. Some wins, some more losses in that, and we hope that we will be able to save that space so that it lives on.
Thanks so much, Mahesh. Like I said, so many more people to call and all of that, but I'm sure all of you are waiting for the beer and wine and dinner as well, so I'm going to, I don't know if that's there, if it's not happening, so Swarna's giving me a shock. I would, last but not least, I would love to have Shashank come down. Shashank has been Ramki's birding companion, so to speak. I don't know what are the right words to use. Shashank, you're best place to do that, and I know if Vishnu is around, be great. You saw them in the video earlier. Please, if you could just say a few words.
Thanks, Vikram. Sometime back, Vinay mentioned how Ramki was very strategic about his business ideas and other things. And he was just like that when it comes to bird photography. I think I met Ramki and Swarna a long time back in December 2006. And I remember a photograph of Ramki taken before that. Like there was I think they have gone to West Bengal, and there was a photograph of a collared falconer diving from a branch, and it's about 18-centimeter bird, very tiny, and he had captured it, and this blew my mind. So I've heard about him before that, and then we started traveling to many remotest places in Northeast India, and quite a few places and quite a few birds were never been photographed before, and we were fortunate enough to go there and see those things for the first time. Just to give you, I'm just gonna say a couple of extreme birding which we did, which I call extreme birding, just because there was a bird called as yellow-throated laughing thrush, and Banu arranged a vehicle to take us somewhere in a place called as Pungro, and we managed to get there. And just to give you an idea, that bird was last seen in India in 1929, and no one had seen that bird since then. It was just one sighting outside India, and we thought, look, because just like being strategic about every bird. We used to plan for, oh, we should go to this place at this time, try and see this bird in this habitat, and we managed to photograph that bird. One more extreme thing, I think, I mean, I don't know, even Vishnu won't know this story. So we went to Mizoram in 2010 December and 2011 January, and we wanted to go to this place called as Murlen National Park. That is on the border of India and Myanmar. Like, you just go beyond like 5 kilometers ahead and you end up in Myanmar. So we wanted to photograph this bird called as Chin Hills Wren Babbler, about 10-12 centimeter bird, very tiny. Again, there's one blurry image from India, and we had no idea how to get there. So we started figuring out the logistics. And then Ramki figured out one of his prof who was there in Singapore, and his maid there was from Mizoram. So figured out, oh, that if she's from Mizoram, let's figure out where she's from Mizoram. Then we figured out, oh, that's she lives, like, her original village is from Murlen. And as luck would have it, we found out her brother's contact. We went to his house. It was middle of nowhere, and we crashed at his place in his living room because there was no place to sleep. So we used to put our sleeping bags on the ground, and we slept for, I think we stayed there for 3 nights. We did manage to get the bird in first 15 minutes, but that was one of the crazy birding adventures. Similarly, once we wanted to go and photograph tawny-breasted wren babbler, and we, again, a tiny bird somewhere in Meghalaya. So we are birding around in Cherrapunji, and for some reason, in the right habitat, bird wasn't present. So said, let's think out of the box and see how we can get this bird. So we went on Google Earth. We zoomed in and figured out where it will be the next possible habitat available on Google Earth. So I always believe that 90% of the birding happens because of the homework, 5% is getting there, and last 5% is to see the bird. So we figured out the next possible habitat on Google Earth, on the spot, on our mobile phones, and then we went and saw the bird. And this is something which not many people do, because no one thinks from that point of view. And there are endless stories with Ramki, with lots of, he, again, like some of you, he introduced me to single malt for the first time, and many other things, including the, I always, on the field trips, I always used to run out of socks, and I always remember that because Ramki always used to have spares with him, and there are many stories with him, but yeah.
Hi, I'm Shashank's wife. I think basically Shashank and I started dating in 2010, and the very week that we started dating, the first person that, his friend that he introduced me to was Ramki and Swarna, and since then they've grown to be more like family than friends to both of us. I've said most of what I had to say, I think, in the video, so I'm going to read out a message that Jairam left. He's the Valley School leader. I have been fortunate to be his friend during the last 4 years that he has been a parent at the Valley School. A warm, affectionate, magnetic, versatile personality who has left an indelible mark on me and the Valley School. His enthusiastic and professional initiatives, camera traps, the first official bird booklet of the Valley School, the brilliant photographs of wilderness, the fantastic initiatives of the Valley bird walks, and another quality of him that many of you may not have discovered, the ease and warmth with which Ramki connected with kids. When he took them out on bird walks, one of the wishes I had nurtured, which never materialized, was to draw him to the fold and get him to be fully engaged at the Valley. His fondness, love, and respect for Valley was so intense and touching, and I could see the childlike bond that he cherished with the Valley and its people. I am sure he's in a world where he's loved even more than he was here. Thank you, my friend, for lighting up so many lives.
Very touching. Thanks, Vishnu. Thanks, Jairam. So thanks, he's here. For those of you who are interested in birding or want to pick it up, just go to valleyschoolwalks.org. Again, another Ramki initiative. We started that about a year back. So if you want to go birding, very limited seats. We made it very exclusive. It's also clear that I think the Scottish industry needs to be thanking Ramki a lot. Seems to me that he's introduced a lot of people to single malts and brought on a lot more business, which is amazing for us. Just to corroborate.
Vikram, just one. Even before we made any money, Ramki used to keep telling me to get him lenses from the US. And each of those lenses was $5,000, $7,000. I mean, I used to find it a criminal waste at that point of time at least. And he put his money where his mouth was at each point of time. Go ahead.
Thanks. I remember that. I remember once he told me about a very small lens here for $4,000 and I kept staring at it.
No, and people going out of business, I think after he moved from Leica, so the Leica store was next to my place in New York. The Leica store actually closed down. I don't know if Ramki is responsible for it, but the Leica store over there closed down. So, yeah.
So just to close on the wildlife, so just two simple anecdotes. So to corroborate what Shashank said, right, I think Ramki was probably one of the most famous wildlife photographers you have not heard of. And if you would know only if you went into the field. Whenever I go anywhere in the country, I first remember I went to Sundarbans. And some guy there was telling another guy in the same boat that we were. There were only 5 of us in the boat and there are people talking about him and they don't know that I was a good friend. And they're like, Ramki karke ek banda hai. Usne hi le hai. There's nobody else who's photographed that bird. It's there in that deep inside that place. I go to Ranthambore, someone says the only known photograph of this is by Ramki, right? I go to Corbett, people talk about his photographs. And I kept quiet all this time because it was such a joy just to hear people talk about across the country. If you followed him on Twitter or anywhere else, he was that famous for his bird photographs, obviously a lot of it in thanks to Shashank and Vishnu as well. And the other thing I think a lot of people might have read in the news but was also on the Narcondam Hornbill. The Narcondam Hornbill, there are just 300 of those. And unfortunately they don't breed or grow anywhere outside of a very tiny island, 6 square kilometers called the Narcondam Island in the Andaman and Nicobar. And Ramki, we ran this whole campaign to get the government to protect that island because they wanted to start a Coast Guard facility there. It was supposed to be strategic to India. And unfortunately now we do have a Navy outpost there. And I remember how much effort and passion he had to go and, Shekhar and Praveen, all of us are helping us. And we actually made it there. And a bird that he had never seen in his life, sitting out of here, he saved one more species. Not just that, there are many more species, but apart from the Amur, it was also the Narcondam Hornbill. And the minister actually heard us and she fought back. Jayanti Natarajan actually fought back against her own government to say we are not going to allow the Coast Guard to set up anything here. And we have never seen it. And after he was diagnosed with cancer, I remember he said, I never thought I'll create a bucket list. And one of the items on that bucket list was to go see the Narcondam Hornbill. And when he described that boat journey in the last mile to go actually see it, it was very, very emotional for me to hear that because at least he got to see it, right? What he had fought so hard to protect. Obviously, like Shankar said, or I think Kimi said, millions of memories for each of us, infinite. We can go on, but I'm sure it lies with all of us. Thank you. Anyone else who wants to say anything in the wildlife side? Happy to have them.
Yeah. I think many of us wouldn't know that Ramki was, he introduced me to yoga and great yoga teachers. And one of the great yoga teachers is with us here. So, and Yamini, I think she will have many fond memories of Ramki. Please.
Yes, I do. Thanks, Kimi. Hi, Shankar. Namaste. It started with Swarna, and Swarna just kind of discovered my small, quaint little studio. I come from a very traditional school of yoga from Mysore, and they were all yoga practitioners before they came in. I still remember, I do have his mat in the shala, and I do remember him walking into the studio very regular. All 3 of them were very regular students of yoga, and walking into the shala, and he had his spot. We were discovering a whole lot of asanas, discussing a lot of them, and in one of the conversations he said that, Yamini, you need to reach more people. So he said, yeah, that's my intention. I have a book which is already authored and it's in the computer. I don't know how to, I'm trying for publishers. That's it. Just Ramki had this contacts, like somebody said, he's so generous with his contacts, and he makes sure that he supports and helps people just, bring out their dreams and intentions. Well, that was my experience with Ramki. He went all the way, helping me out, from the point of editing, Ramki and Swarna. We just brought out a very beautiful book called The Power of Yoga, and well, Ramki's and Swarna's name is in that. I really am very, very grateful for that book, and now it's the bestseller, translated into different languages. It wouldn't have been without Ramki and Swarna. I miss him a lot. We did have a lot of conversation in between when he was diagnosed with cancer also. Maybe I was one of the first few of them who was shocked to hear about his diagnosis. We tried to deal with it with yoga and holistic, and we discussed a lot of things, and it was something I did not expect. I thought Ramki is going to come out of this unfortunate cancer. So it's during the pandemic we did discuss about a few things which he should be working on to deal with his with the different side effects of his issues. Well, our last few stages, like my last message with him was in August 2022. After that, I heard from Swarna also, he's kind of doing well with the therapy which he was going through, and that's about it. And I just lost in touch with him completely. Finally, to hear this very bad news, there is no more with us, and I can't still believe, Ramki, that you're not around. My daughter Manya is very, very keen on conservation. She was in touch with him too, and he led her to do a whole lot of work on conservation. And he's been a family to me, a brother. Miss you, Ramki, and like everybody says, be happy where you are. We'll keep missing you. Fond memories. I do remember when some things which I used to say when I'm instructing the asanas, I would get confused between ankle and knee. So I said, take your knee towards your head. No, take your ankle towards your head and your knee towards your face. And he used to go and write it on the board for a laugh later. So how do you do this? So there were a lot of things like that which he used to liven up the yoga shala when the yoga shala is supposed to be very quiet, and a small little joke from one side making the whole atmosphere, light. And we used to enjoy doing yoga together. Your mat is with me, Ramki, whenever you want. Come to the shala, practice. Thank you. It was beautiful listening to Ramki's stories, and thank you for this lovely evening, Swarna, Kimi, Shankar. Namaste.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Is Dr. Naveen here? I remember him introducing me to Dr. Naveen for my mom, and honestly, we heard so much about you, and I think we just renewed your domain as well. So I was just going through his GoDaddy. The thing with the way he saw, when Dr. Naveen comes here, the way he saw cancer was with his usual smile on his face and laugh, right? This happened 2 weeks after my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and he calls me and says, you don't have to face this alone with your mom. I'm also going to be facing this with you. I'm going to be studying a lot about cancer. And I didn't understand. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I was diagnosed, and he's laughing. And it just struck me, my knees buckled, and I just sat down on the chair where I was because, it was so close. And he kept laughing, saying, it's okay, we'll fight it. Your mom is there. I'm now facing this, we'll fight this together. And I guess that's really the way Ramki saw his cancer as well. And, I think that's why he successfully beat it for 5 years. Vikram is here. Yeah, you're here.
Thanks for having me. It's very wonderful to know Ramki through all of you this evening at all his stages of life. Truly celebrated every stage. And I'm really glad that I didn't know all of it in years of my interaction with him. Now, in hindsight, I know why. Because I think some of these souls and people know instinctually who are very mindful and innocent that what's in store for them. So when he came to us, he came for yoga sadhana after his time with Yamini. He wanted to do more of yoga philosophy. And again, like all of you felt too early to know all of that, and he was craving for that as if he knew somewhere that time is running short. And I've been a yoga researcher all my life. And in yoga we have this phrase, there are two aspects to yoga persona. One is guni and the other one is muni. And I've lived my yoga life more as a guni, as a scholar. And he was one who wanted to dig through all that. And I saw a muni in him, who wanted to live all of that knowledge that I knew. And through the years, as yoga sadhana progressed, he went out to people who I just had read and known, and he actually practiced all of that. So while he started body work with you of yoga, he continued very deeply into breath work and mind work, and then ultimately to yoga philosophy and Vedanta. In a very inimitable Ramki style, very thorough, very deep, very innocently. And then pretty soon, when we heard this diagnosis, I knew why he was pursuing all of this. And then we were very candid and frank how to use all of that for his journey through the cancer, which is why he had wonderful time. I mean, it's very paradoxical and ironical to say it, but I must tell you all that he used cancer also to discover life in a very, very profound way. And then he prepared his soul in more than one way for early departure. And now, if I put all the pieces together, in Vedanta we have, don't mind me sounding a bit preachy, that there are 4 purposes of life, Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Today I hear his success in Dharma, Artha and Kama being his passion for conservation. And he was preparing with me and Yamini for Moksha. So I'm pretty sure his yoga sadhana was more profound than many yogis that I know in many ashrams. And I'm sure he and his soul is liberated with the profundity at each stage. And in the most sincere way of expressing moksha is celebration. And so today's evening is aptly titled Celebrating Ramki. So he celebrated life. He is synonymous with celebration of life. And I think just as all of you have so many fond memories and lessons for life, although I was a signpost for him in yoga and sadhana, there are so many lessons for us, for me as well. So I think if some Ramki in our life is retained, I think we would be celebrating our lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And at this juncture, there are a lot of people here who haven't spoken. I'm just going to go to some of the people who've known him for very long. Dara is here. If he wants to say something, just sit there.
Yeah, sure. So along with these guys, I'm a full-time classmate of his. I told Swarna about this a while ago, but one of the things that I really remember from that time there are many. I mean, it's a child's memory, so it's not always continuous. But Kaka and Rama introduced us to smoking. And I remember my first day when I got there. It was behind the elementary section. And I was like, no trepidation. I wasn't really sure this was the right thing to do, whatever. And Rama was like, it was a chut bugger. You know, they called me Dara because I was the biggest guy. And he was like a small guy. And he was like, hey, unnu mellada. And he just like put it in his nose. And then just inhaled it. I said, you do it, man. So, yeah, I mean, it's actually great to listen to all of you. And I think some of the things that we know about him like continues. He was a unique talent when it comes to his caricatures, and he used to, you know, make funny pictures of our teachers. And actually, one of those times, we have a teacher who had one leg was a little bit longer than the other, and so he used to draw him with like a big brick for under one leg. And the teacher came and he looked at him, "Ennappa? Avlo periya sengal. You know, why is this brick so big? My leg is not that short." So, yeah, it was always a funny side. He wasn't the prankster, but he always had a good laugh. Yeah, many things. I mean, you know, I remember, you know, you talking about the bang thing, and you know, he introduced me to cigar many years later in New York when I met you as well. I hadn't been smoking for a while. So habitually, I just inhaled. Oh my God, he laughed his head off, right? Because I was spluttering and coughing, and he was like, I think. So I worked for WWF, so I talked a lot of conservation with him at various points in time. I think, but not in India. So I was overseas, and I actually asked him to join me. But he was so passionate about conserving, you know, Indian biodiversity and natural reserves. So I think it's commendable to hear all his accomplishments. It was great to see him through all that journey, and it's great to meet you all and hear the, you know, continuity. So it's a celebration. I'm so happy to be here to hear that. You know, we'll always miss him. There are so many things that remind me of him. Like I can't watch a game without thinking of him. We used to trade messages every day after every NBA game, and like every trade that happened, and the very grounds that we played in. So there's so many good memories, but I think this just contributed to so much more. So thank you for sharing, and you know, he's one of a kind. So miss him deeply. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. I was just going to go to some of the unlikely people. We'll get Swami to speak later, but I was just wondering if his sister-in-law would like to say something. Yeah.
We know him as Ganesh at home, and that's his name. And he was such a likable person, or laughing all the time, and you know, cracking jokes. He would make any situation really light for anybody. And he went too soon. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. And Swarna's sister is also here, Diana.
In 2000, when Swarna met Ramki, it was just before 2000, so sometime 99, when my parents called me and said, "Yeah, your sister's getting married finally." I said, "Oh, is it? And so who's the guy?" And there he says, "Oh, it's Ramki," and I just wanted to know more about him. And one call with him, it was like a big connection. All I could say is, "Welcome to the family." And truly, you know, I was blessed with a brother, and I miss him so much, and I love him a lot. And happy to have known him. And there are a lot of other small facets that I didn't know, and I've learned that he's been truly loved and he's been missed by so many of you. And it's touched me, and I love you, Ramki. Wherever you are, be happy. Thank you.
So on that note, I had one incident when Swarna and Ramki got married. I was staying in their apartment when they came in. So I actually didn't know they were coming, but yeah, staying in their apartment. And I remember Ramki telling me, Ramki did not watch a lot of films, at least Hindi films he did not watch a lot, at that time at least. And he said, and we were watching some song, and that time there was this movie, Kaho Na Pyar Hai, which had become a big hit. And Hrithik Roshan was on screen. He said, Vinay, Swarna and her sister was sitting and watching this, and they kept saying, look, 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 look. And all I could think was, is this fly open? Is there something wrong with him? And it's only later I figured out that he had a sixth finger. So, and that's what they were trying to notice. So Linga is here with us. He's been there with him from SPJ.
Yeah, I think just a couple of months ago, maybe November, after he came back from hospital, when he came back home, he said bye da. And while his voice was low, but he made up a lot of it through his spirit and his classic mischievous smile that he would say that. I think all through the time in college when we first met, and I'm sure my would say that as well, that we've never seen him hassled about anything to do with studies or nothing, never. Always at the center of every discussion around fun, and he's the guy who landed the best job on college campus, and nobody could figure out how did he land it, but he landed the best job on campus, the most accomplished guy amongst our batch, the most accomplished guy, and always gave us 100% to everything that he did. He saw things through, whether it was getting our placement brochure, photographing it, figuring out which corner of the building to get the best angle, and what and none of us knew what photography was. I mean, he knew how to get the best angle out of us so that we could look reasonably good in the placement brochure, and finally all of us landed a job, so we owe our jobs to him for having captured our pictures the right way. But all in all, I think I truly believe that God wanted him up there for a lot more pressing work, and that's why God has got him there. But he's left us his spirits and his memories with us, and wherever he is, Ramki's just watching us, and I think he's still got his mischievous smile looking at all of us talking about him now.
Thanks. So there are a lot of other people here, some unlikely people. Ritu, where's Ritu? Yeah, so Ritu, I mean, she's been around us all through Marketix and probably before. And if she wants to share something, but you'll have to come this side, Ritu. Oh, yeah, you're fine. I mean, she's been that way. So, anyone else? Stephen, I didn't know. I think it must have been only Ramki who figured out that Stephen could be a star. He's now a budding television star. So,
well, I think I'm the only one that Ramki introduced me to, single malt, and I never got into the habit. And he always said, "How can you, a Malayali, never drink?" I said, "I'm sorry, I never get the taste for it." So I'm the only odd one out among the whole of you. But I thank Ramki for the lovely 6 years at Marketix. I had lost my job at AT&T, and he called up Vinay and said, there's this guy, can you help him out? And Vinay calls me up and says, "Do you know anything in statistics?" I said, "I'll try whatever can be done to, keep my H1." But I could not, so I came back to Bangalore, and in his usual way, Ramki meets us in the coffee shop, and he was talking about everything else but the job. So finally, I did not know whether I had got the job or not. But, the next day Shankar says, and this is true Marketix, Shankar says, this is the time you need to report to work. I was like, I don't have an appointment letter. Acha, ek kaam kar, why don't you make your appointment letter and send it to me? I said, what about salary? We discussed salary, so you write it. I mean, this is amazing. I'm making my own appointment letter. I have actually drawn out my own salary and I have sent it to them. The one good thing about Ramki was I had to work with Shankar. Okay, so the working with Shankar is a lot. Okay, I'll leave it there. Oh, so he's not my boss anymore. But yeah, working with Shankar, you're required to be really, really in it. And it was when Ramki comes in, is like a breath of fresh air. Not like Shankar is not a breath of fresh air. But I used to really enjoy, those moments with Ramki. He will call me for any creative work that needs to be done. So we needed to make our iCards. And he says, let's not get iCards. So I need you to, I love Mr. Beam. So I used to kind of do his theater and all his work, and Ramki knew about it. So he says, you make the expression, and these guys need to copy you, and we will photograph them, and that's their ID. So if you see his ID, my ID, and all the IDs that were there at Marketix, we actually made them do different expressions and make it. So, and that was Ramki. It was never work, as everybody says. It was such a creative time working with him for all the work. I mean, the one more time, he actually called me from the US to host one of the events at Marketix. He says, nobody else but you can do it. I don't think so anybody else in any other organization will fly somebody from the US to host an in-house party event for anything else. But that is Ramki. I'm glad we know him, and he's blessed.
So a lot of people have been talking about how he was very strategic. This was also one of his strategic moves on getting him back. But anyway.
So the first time I met Ramki, I was waiting to get my picture taken by him. So this was for the ID card that Stephen was talking about, and like he said, all of us had to make faces. So I had just joined Marketix, and I obviously had heard about our CEO Ramki, and this was the first time I was meeting Ramki. So he gets me into a room, and then he tells me, you have to make a funny face. I have just joined the company, the first time I'm meeting the CEO, and I have to make a funny face. I was, petrified. So he quietly gets up and closes the door. And then he says, you're not leaving till you make a funny face. So from there to, from that point where I struggled to make a funny face to not being able to stop smiling whenever he was around, that was a bit of a journey.
So, a lot of people have been saying that Ramki was the CEO. I think Vijay will probably remember this. But anyone who used to go abroad or to a client would get a card printed, otherwise we didn't have a card. And quite a few CEOs were there in the company. It wasn't just Ramki. A lot of CEOs were there in the company. So, and one could choose between a CEO or a director or whichever way you wanted to be. And a truly flat organization that way. I think we are coming to kind of the end, and we can actually go ahead and we can go and have some dinner, have a few drinks and chat about it. But I was just wondering if Swami would like to come, and then after that I'll get Swarna to probably try to wrap it up. Swami.
First of all, thanks Vinay, Shankar, Kimi for organizing this. I got a lot of different facets from all of you, and it's really heartening to know that he has touched so many people across the spectrum. It's not like, it was a flash in the pan sort of a thing that in Marketix he suddenly transformed and became this guy, or in SPJ he suddenly transformed and became this guy. But I must tell you that growing up, we had a lot of similar interests. Like I was into birding as well, doing conservation kind of stuff, but we were both in different groups. We were never part of the same birding group. I was part of an organization, sort of a group which was a little bit more serious, and his birding group was the likes of Arvind and all these guys were the more fun type guys. And we now know a lot more about the fun stuff that they were doing. But that's a part of how we had common interests but pursued it very differently. One thing that I'm a little bit surprised about is the fact that he became an entrepreneur. Actually, if you really ask me, I thought he was more an artist. You know, in the sense that he could comprehend visual things much better than many of, at least in my age group and even in his age group. You know, so he took to drawing stuff. You know, just. Looking at the cartoons and newspaper and trying to draw it, and my dad encouraged him to do that. And actually, he ended up. My dad sent him for a drawing course, which was more like a correspondence course. And I was reasonably sure that he's not going to complete it because it was in addition to his school work and all of that. But actually, he did complete it, and a lot of his drawings were, in fact, there with us until recently. I don't know where they've disappeared, but actually we could see how he progressed in that path, and he took it with a lot of interest. And everything that he used to do was very light-hearted. Even then, not getting too serious about anything. And also the fact that he had an eye for visual. And of course, wildlife is something that was part of us as such, as I said. So when he talked about conservation in India, the two things that come to my mind is that he used to collect any article that used to be published in the Hindu newspaper, which is what you used to buy. He used to cut it and paste it in a scrapbook. And this I'm talking about in 4th grade, 5th grade, and I was kind of telling him that, this news is going to keep coming out, like, things around, so-and-so acquires a tiger in the zoo, or, something that relates to, birds were found in Vedandangal. These were very common kind of news, but he used to cut it and paste it in a scrapbook. And he maintained that scrapbook for, I would think, perhaps 7-8 years until we ran out of that scrapbook, and then, he kind of moved on to, doing other things. The other thing that we did was, there used to be a magazine called Target. I don't know if any of you have encountered that. Goes back to 80s. So Target used to have a pull-out section on wildlife. And the center 4 or 5 pages used to be on wildlife. So it started with all the mammals of India, starting with A and going on to Z. So that entire collection was there. We used to buy all of those magazines, pull it out, and actually bind it, and we had that book. I don't know if Swarna, somewhere you've seen that book, but that was very precious to him. And I don't know how many wildlife photographers are here, but I can tell you his number one wildlife photographer of those days was a gentleman from Karnataka called E. Hanumanta Rao. And he used to publish a lot of pictures in the Target magazine, and that was his, Hanumanta Rao's, photographs. And in fact, we went on to, try and see if we could get more work of Hanumanta Rao published works. It wasn't easy to get those books those days. So, that was his motivation. I could see that, photography was something that, actually my dad was a decent photographer. He had a camera which he brought along, and Ganesh, as we used to call him, was playing around with it. I think Arvind would know. But, it was a very old camera. It wasn't really taking good pictures, but I'm sure there was some motivation that came into his photography at that point in time. But yeah, the fact that, there is a story about how he got into business school and all of that. So much of it is like very casual. How he got into New College is again a very casual thing. He didn't really sit for any of the exams, and he hadn't even applied to any of the engineering colleges. So where was he going to go? So it was like that. At that point in time, you have to make a decision. Where is he going to study, right? And this guy is like, yeah, I haven't done any of that. And then we had to find a way for him to get into college. After college, it was again the situation where, okay, I've done college, now what do I do? And he's sitting here, and we are all thinking, like my dad and my mom, like wondering, he's done college, what do we do? So 1 year he became a cartoonist. He used to draw, he was drawing cartoons for one of the magazines and whatever. And so by that time I was in SP Jain as well. So we actually share 2 alma maters, both Vidya Mandir, where I studied. I was 2 years his senior, and SP I was 3 years his senior. 92 I passed out, 93 he joined. I was just getting out of SP, and this guy was sitting there and cartooning, and I'm wondering, what is he going to do? And it turned out that one of my friends who just got out of IIM Ahmedabad, he met him and he told him that, you know, you got to do something more and beyond. And I'm sure his friends also influenced him in some way. And just like that, he was an SP Jain. And I'm like wondering, you know, he was so casual about it. I know people who prepared so much for getting into an MBA school and, you know, years of preparation and that's my goal and whatever. So actually, you know, contrary to some of you, I never saw him as strategic. You know, I saw him as like, you know, here is the bunch of opportunities in front of me. How do I use whatever it is to make that choice right then and there, perhaps, you know. So sometimes I often wonder, but I'm sure there was some amount of strategic thinking in him. But when I saw some of these events, it was like, you know, perhaps, you know, even when he got into SP Jain and 2 years, you know, I met a lot of Linga and Ranga and Srivats. I met a lot of them in campus. And I used to ask him, so, okay, now 2 years are going to get over. What are you going to get placed? He said, see, everybody thinks I'm a great cartoonist, so I think an ad job will be a great job. You know, so it's kind of, he was not even serious about what he wanted to do. And like all of you said, even though he was like a joker, you know, just goofing around and doing stuff in college and stuff like that. So, you know, it so happened that at one point in time, I did tell him that, you know, this is your only chance to get to certain companies, because after that, they're never going to recruit. So if you're going to be serious about something, do, perhaps make an effort right now. And lo and behold, I got a call. I had gone back to Chennai for some work, and he called me and said, I've got into Procter & Gamble. And I said, wow. I mean, 3 months back, he was like clueless about what he wanted to do, at least in my mind. And, you know, his friends are all telling him, you know, you're a marketing, you're a, you know, advertising guy, you'll get into advertising and so on. And here I'm suddenly seeing him getting into Procter & Gamble, which didn't even come on campus when I was studying. It was such a coveted company at that point in time, right? And after that, it was all about very, very positive surprises in everything that he did. But one thing that never surprised me was that at some point in time, he is going to get into conservation in a very big way, because I saw that in him when he was very young. And that's something, and by the way, the group that these guys used to hang around with was called the Conservators. I don't know if you remember. That group was called the Conservators, which was a set of, you know, these goofy guys, so to say, who are going and doing wildlife, among other things, you know. But wildlife was very core to him. And in fact, he made a lot of got good introductions to people who are very scientific in their conservation endeavors. Because conservation is like, yeah, I also want to conserve and whatever have you, right? But getting that scientific bent of mind, I think he got it early, but I thought that was always his burning desire to get into conservation. Bird photography was, you know, sort of an additional thing that came along the way, but you know, glad that he has touched so many of you and so many animals and birds, especially Banu's association with, you know, taking him to Nagaland, making him sort of a son of Nagaland of sorts. You know, I think that tribute of how he really helped in conserving the Amur falcon will always live with him, with all of us, for us to go and see the Amur falcons, you know. And thanks to all of you for being here and honoring him. It's as a part of his family. It's really heartening to see the lives that he has touched, and that's the kind of life that I would like to lead as well.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Swami. I also wanted to announce that in the past few years, a few years ago, Ramki, I think either created or supported an initiative called Wildlife for Cancer, which is run by the Iksha Foundation. Swarna, you want to say something about it?
Arvind,
Sure, yeah. Wonderful to hear all these great stories, friends that he's known forever. I've known Ramki for about 10 years, met right around the time when Shiva was born. My kids go to Valley School as well. I was an alumni from Valley School. The book that they made about birds, Ramki started it. During the pandemic, he was unwell, but he put the effort to make that book. He's gone for walks with kids from junior school an hour and a half every day, the entire week. Different batches would come in. They wanted to socially distance, so they had only a few kids. My daughter Vindhya is in 3rd standard. She sent a small little video clipping to Swarna just recently, saying thank you for the walks that you did with us. So like everyone's saying, he's touched so many lives. When he was in the hospital for the first time, he was already thinking about what he's going to do after he's, if something happens kind of thing. So that's when I think Swarna and he talked about how he can give back to cancer, to help people who can't afford the treatment in cancer. And they both discussed, and Iksha Foundation is a foundation that Tanmaya, Josephine and I started about 11 years ago, helps children with eye cancer. And so Ramki said, Swarna and Ramki discussed, and they said, let's just do something in order to give back to Iksha Foundation because we know the people. So we've had several discussions about what he wants to do, strategic in the way that he approached it, maybe different. Maybe he grew up sometime in his life, but yeah, just very focused on what he wanted to do. Talked about the fact that he had never sold his photographs before, but this is something that he wants to do for the first time in his life. So it has helped a lot of children that we're supporting. We started 11 years ago supporting 2 children. We're supporting 230 children now. But Wildlife for Cancer, thank you so much. But Wildlife for Cancer is something that Ramki had a much bigger picture, where anyone who wants to add their photographs into it, any other photographer who wants to put their photographs up there, any other cause that needs the funding for cancer is something, it's a much bigger thing. It's going to live forever, just like Ramki is going to live in our lives. So Swarna and I have been talking lately, and we're going to do a bunch with it. But this is the kind of person that Ramki was, touched lives when he was here as a kid, growing up in college, and forever. So really grateful to have met Ramki, and thank you all for having this wonderful language.
Mr. Sudarshan, is it? Anand Sudarshan, yeah. I'll just come up there.
Thank you. What an extraordinary, multifaceted person. It's an honor to have known him. I met Ramki early 2000s, actually, for the first time. Met a few times after that. Enjoyed his humor. And I honestly wish, we were for a brief while in his life fellow travelers in a pothole-filled road, sitting in a cantankerous vehicle with a driver that nobody was not listening to anybody. It's an interesting journey that we were together on. We were able to exchange a lot of notes in that journey. I wish I had known him better. I wish I had had the chance to spend a lot more time with him. We would have surely downed a lot of drams of delicious nectar of the Scottish gods, as many of you seem to have done. We didn't get that opportunity, but it's a phenomenal person, and I wish Swarna and Shiva all the very best. And I look forward to getting to know about Ramki more and more, Swarna. Thank you.
Okay. The first time I met Ramki was, I own a resort in Esargata, and I was new to the whole business of running a resort, and I was trying to meet as many people who would be able to sell the resort, and I got to know about Swarna, and she agreed to come and visit us. And her driver came along, Ramki, and actually, yeah, you were driving, perhaps, you're right. Yeah, true. And I remember chatting with Ramki, and a lot of familiar things came up. He was talking about how he was in Procter & Gamble. I said, oh, wow, that's nice, because I had worked for 5 years on the Procter & Gamble business when I lived outside the country. And he was a sweet Tambram, and I grew up with Tambrams in Chennai. And we started off in Tamil, and that's it. We just clicked. Now, he's one of those typical super intelligent, Tambrams, Procter and Gamble, engineering, MBA, whatever. And all those, none of those kind of showed for the human being that he was, because I've seen him at one of his most vulnerable times, when I remember he was close to tears with some of the challenges that he had. We used to spend hours together on the phone discussing it. And for me, here was this hotshot, super intelligent guy, but there was that human side of him, that very vulnerable, innocent side of him, which was so endearing. I'll never forget those long conversations that we had on the phone, the time when he was just going to go through to welcoming Shiva home. And in Tamil we have this term kurumbu, right? That he still had that childishness, in his eyes all the time, in spite of all the seriousness. So I was so fortunate that he trusted me to expose that vulnerable side of him to me. And it's so difficult for me to talk to him in the past sense, and it will be for a long time. Thank you.
Anything apart from birding?
Apart from birding, I don't know what to say, because I interacted with the cricket team. I in fact endured the cricket team. I was on the advertising agency side. There were 11 of them and there were 4 of us, and they kept coming at us. Anyway, but I ran into Ramki and Swarna a few years later in Nagarhole, and I think that changed my life, because I always loved wildlife. I did a lot of tiger tourism, and then Ramki one day said, "Hey, go to this place, see some birds." I was like, "No, yeah." He said, "Just go." And I'd seen him in action. We were in Ranthambore and we'd seen lots of tigers, and this chap was asking for a bird. Guide was also saying, "Sir, kya hai? Tiger dekho, sir." He said, no, I want to see this painted sand grouse. And then we were, after the safari, he said, "Dikha dunga, sir." And then we were at this dirty little pond and we were waiting. Suddenly Ramki with his camera, he gets down from the jeep, he's crawling on all fours, muddy ground. I was like, what is this guy doing? And then he said, "I got a great picture." And then few years later, when, thanks to him, he's my wildlife guru. Thanks to him, when I started birding, I was doing the same thing, and I couldn't help but reflect on the irony of that. I was laughing at him, and here I was doing the very same thing. But I cannot speak about Ramki in the past tense, ever. God bless you, man.
Thank you. Swarna, I think if you want to just wrap up.
I don't know. How do you wrap up Ramki, For me, he's gone on this long trip and he's going to come home. I don't think he's gone, So for me, I still feel that he's pretty much there and he's in his room. He's going to come out, he's going to have breakfast, lunch, dinner with me. So it hasn't sunk in that he's gone, because I truly believe he's not, and he's somebody who does not, right? He's just been there in every little cell of you. And I haven't seen him when he was young, where these guys were very fortunate to be with him then. But I can completely visualize it, I can completely see him in that role of being this kurumbu in every little situation, because he carried that kurumbu right through till December 17th. Actually till December 15th, 2022, because after that they sedated him. So for me, everything is Ramki, home is Ramki, you enter the house, it's Ramki everywhere. So that's not going to go. But what I truly like today is that everyone here got this little, this big jigsaw puzzle, and these little pieces that were there all over the place. And I think Vinay, Kimi, Shaila, all of you, Shankar, all of you made this effort to put this together, so we all get to know this huge jigsaw puzzle called Ramki. Thank you so much. Thank you. I can't, I'm totally indebted to all of you for the love you have for him. And I think he made each one of us feel so special, in our interactions with him. And that was what was great about Ramki. Whatever he did it more than 100%. So you will never see him pick up a call if he's with you. And you will never see him talk if he's on a call. You know, so that's how focused and dedicated he was, and he was always trying to be at the present. I'm sure you all know in the meetings, no calls were allowed, right? So he could not get distracted from what you're doing, and his focus was so deep in everything he did. And till today, I haven't found, it's not because Ramki is my husband, but I have not found any person who can be so focused and try and get the depth of knowledge on everything he wanted to know. Right? And it's 100% everything. How can you be 100% at everything, you know, whether it is single malt or it's conservation, right? But what I'm saying is that's how he thought of life, that if you did something, don't do half-ass job about it, you know. He wouldn't pick up if he knew he wouldn't finish, right? So that was how he went, you know. And if he took up anything, he will see through right till the end, and he will, if it means holding somebody's hand or doing it on his own. He didn't mind flexing every part of his body to do it. So I'm so glad all of you came. All of you came here. I know it's because of the love he had for you and you have for him. Thank you so much. And I especially want to thank you all because of Shiva. I want him to grow up not being overwhelmed by his dad or to be able to achieve what his dad did, but somewhere in his heart, I want him to take back that his dad did great work, and something that all of us can also try to do in, you know, however little our ways we can. Thank you so much. One last thing I had to tell you was his journey with cancer. Okay, it came as a shock, right? You wouldn't, if you were to actually read up the risk factors of somebody who would get lung cancer, he didn't have any. Okay. Smoking he left 22 years ago. He did yoga 3 times a day for a decade before the diagnosis. He was running 10 kilometers 3 times a week. He was at his fittest best, and pretty much, you know, men peak at 40, right? So this is the last thing that you would think that could happen. And he was vegan, okay? So that's, and yoga, everything, right? So you wouldn't think something like this would actually hit a person like him, and it did. I don't think it really sunk into him, because when we went and met the pulmonologist, she just rattled, okay, and I don't think he registered anything at all. And the next day we had to do a scan, and then I found out about it much before he actually got to know the spread, right? So the only person I could go to at that time was Dr. Naveen. I said, Dr. Naveen, I cannot tell him anything, you have to. And Dr. Naveen sat him down and had this lovely conversation about what Ramki had and put it in a perspective that Ramki could understand, digest, and not only that, make friends with the disease. And that's something that he did. All his 5 years, he didn't fight it. He didn't have battles with it. He wasn't aggressive with it, you know. He made friends with cancer, and somewhere, if you see, all his scans post that, even in October of 2022, his entire lung issue was completely resolved. And I can tell you it was because of his deep faith in yoga, in the mind work and the breath work that he was doing, and of course the passion in which he did everything that he wanted to do, and that kept him going, you know. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I think all of us will be touched by cancer somewhere or the other. Either a friend or somebody from family will definitely be touched by it. And it's about how we can view this disease and how we can seek support to ensure that we can in some way face it without thinking of it to be end of life, you know, that there is life even after diagnosis, even after finding out that it is stage 4, it's gone to your brain, right? I think Ramki did one of his best works in the last 5 years. I'm sure most of you will agree. I mean, he had a great 45 before that, but some of his best works came out in the last 5 years, and that's because he knew he could do it, in spite and despite, because he had made friends with this disease. So I want everybody to go back home today knowing that this is something we can all tackle, and it is going to touch us. So that's why I thought it's best that we all prepare ourselves for it, more our minds and our hearts, and seek support. We have people like Dr. Naveen here. We have a whole lot of people who can help us holistically into handling this in a mind, level, and not just a body level or a medicine level. So thank you so much again. Thank you all. Ramki would have loved to see you all together. He is, and he's very happy up there. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. We can just go and have dinner and a few drinks. We got a lot of videos from a lot of people expressing what they wanted in a short period of time, but the number of people is so large that we could not include all of them. I'm going to just play them on the screen. Whenever we feel like we can turn around and have a look, and it'll be something wonderful about Ramki. And let's continue the celebration. Thank you.
And this selflessness. Ramki engaged with everything that he did with remarkable passion, with amazing passion. Whether this was birding or bird photography or conservationindia.com or simply having a conversation with you, there is amazing passion that would be when engaged with people. He was also a truly selfless person. I think everything that he did for a cause, for a common cause, or to help somebody else. And this is again true in the case of Amur falcon conservation in general, etc. And I think in his remarkable but unfortunately short life, he lived the lives of many others, the long lives of many others, and we will always miss him.
Hi, I'm Arvind. I've known Ramki for the last 10-11 years. He's Shiva and my Arya are about the same age. Several things that Ramki and I have been connected through. One of them is sports. Both of us used to love talking about and watching NBA basketball. Golden State Warriors was his team. Dallas Mavericks was my team. Data analytics was another thing that we talked about. Big data, things like that. We also talked about children. There was once when he was diagnosed with cancer, he decided to do something for children with cancer. I run a foundation called Iksha Foundation, so going back and forth, discussing several times, we decided to start Wildlife for Cancer, which has been a huge help for Iksha Foundation. The first time that Ramki decided to sell his prints was for a good cause, supporting children with eye cancer, which is Iksha Foundation. Several happy moments, fun moments, lots of deep introspection, talking about AI, talking about why he allows Google and YouTube to get his data because it gives him better results. So I'm going to miss him a bunch, but I'm so glad that I was his friend and got to meet him.
There's just not one thing that I really remember about Rama. I can talk about few instances. Wonderful times when we listened to, we had similar tastes in music, and we listened to music together growing up. During excursions, some of the times we spent together in 10th grade, etc., etc. But and even as adults. So one of the things that, to me, it is just when I think about Rama, it is the feelings that come in, that the warmth, so the love that I had for him, and he, I'm sure, in his own way for me, that was always there for us to enjoy. And I look forward to meeting him, talking to him, learning about so many things from him. And it was glorious and satisfying kind of relationship that brings warmth. And that's the memory I have of Rama, this beautiful time that I spent with him that'll be forever in my heart.
Never in my slightest thought that it'll come to this and I will be doing this video. In the entire pandemic time, it was wishing people for their birthdays and watching marriages online, and really that was the scenario. This is the first time I'm doing something like this, and actually I wasn't able to do this, and still, because I still think of him every other day, and it makes me feel, my heart feel really heavy, and but the one thing that just comes to my mind is there's lots to talk about him. I grew up with him, and he was my neighbor. We grew up together. We were really close. And but the one thing that I really like to say is, if you are doing this right now, and if so many people have done this for him, and if so many people have gathered today, so many videos are there, it just shows that we must celebrate life. We must celebrate him, and because he's touched people in many ways, in different ways, each one differently, and made a difference. And I'm really happy to have grown up with him, he is my best friend, and we did so many things together, and whatever he's done to improve, help people in different walks of life, to the nature, his contributions to nature, everything. I think it is phenomenal, and I'm very happy and proud about Ramki, and I think we must celebrate and continue whatever he started in different areas. So I just have I have to say that I really miss him, and knowing the fact that he was there somewhere and not talking every day, but knowing he was there is different from not being there.
Fast forward to 99, 2000, Rama used to stay with us during his trips to the Northeast. We got to spend a lot of time together. It was during this time we got even closer. Our son Vihan was born then and is very attached to Rama Idana. I would also argue Rama had a huge part in kindling Vihan's interest in wildlife. Our daughter Rashi is very interested in photography, so we hope she can carry some of his passion forward. Rama did not visit the US after Market X, but we did meet every single time I visited India, even if it was multiple times a year, be it Bangalore, Chennai, Coimbatore or Valpare. Totally cherish those visits with Rama, Swarna and Shiva. Although we will miss him dearly, we look forward to spending more time with Swarna and Shiva. Shiva is growing up to be a lovely, inquisitive young man. Had a great chat with him this past summer. Lastly, we're also proud of Rama and his achievements. He definitely left this place better than he had inherited it. And Rama, if you're listening, here we go. So thank you all for joining today's event celebrating Rama's life. We, his classmates from Vidyamandir, Chennai, call him Rama and not Ramki, so we'll just go by that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ashwan. I've known Rama since elementary school. So as we celebrate Rama's life, I'm here to welcome you all and share my own memories about him. As a kid, Rama was super funny. He always had one-liners that would get us all cracking up. He was also an amazing artist and a caricaturist. So, thinking about Rama caricatures, this one evening we were all invited to a Boy Scout camp, although we were not part of Boy Scouts. We were generally messing around and being loud and all that. And then, to top it, Rama started to caricature our high school teachers and narrated epithets for every caricature. We just couldn't stop laughing. We were just totally rude, and it got us to the point that we had to be escorted out of the camp. I know Dara has those caricatures, really funny ones, but I know some of them can't be shared here and some partially can be. I did get to see this facet of Rama in the later years too, but much less so. My first wildlife conservation camp was with Rama, Arvind, Papi, Ashok, we call him Ashok, Kumar, Kumi. And I believe that was also Rama's first visit out of town to the jungle, and that was at Mundanrai. I owe my interest in wildlife